All right. Good morning, Sean. Nice wintry morning in Cape Town for us.
Morning, Bobby. Yeah, it's raining like cats and dogs outside. It
Yeah,
kind of, I think, has the same sort of sentiment as what's been going on in the crypto market. Yeah.
100%. And yeah, so in terms of things I wanted to chat to you about is obviously the price action that we've been seeing the last couple of days. China's been in the news with their miners, so I definitely want to chat about that. And I thought in terms of just kind of chatting about stablecoins, because I think I've been utilizing stablecoins, and maybe we can just explain to our users or to our viewers, yeah, what a stablecoin is. So should we dive into this price action, because that's been driving things lately? Last night or early or late afternoon, we breached the 30,000 US dollar mark, which kind of gets everyone going, oh.
Oh yeah. Everyone was kind of running to the door yesterday. I mean, Bitcoin's up to $34,000 now. So naturally, when you watch or listen to this,
Yes.
it'll probably be a different price to that. Ethereum's down to $2,000. I think it got as low as like $1,900 yesterday. So we have seen a very big pullback. But I think if we take a step back, and again, like you're speaking to like the perma bull here, but if you take a step back, I mean, Bitcoin's still up 180% over the last year. Ethereum's still up 560%. Zoom out a little bit further, 2 years. I mean, Bitcoin's up 840%, Ethereum's up 1,100%. So, I mean, like it's weird to sort of say this because, obviously you will say this at the point that it pulls back, but like, of course this will happen at some point, right? I mean, would this have happened if we were sitting at 100,000 Bitcoin? Yeah, there would have been some sort of a pullback. So I don't think people should be too scared right now. And there's perhaps something, and this kind of relates to the Chinese crackdown that we should talk about as well, because I believe that there's a big portion. I mean, sure, that you've got retail investors running to the door right now, but there's a big portion of the supply currently in the market that's probably coming from the Chinese miners at this point in time.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just carry on the price action. And I really appreciate that you talk about how the price, if you had to compare it, that was $10,000 a year ago or whatever, 2 years ago, it was at 10,000 and everyone was like bullish about 10,000, now they're scared at 30,000. But, obviously during these massive bull runs that we saw towards the end of last year and obviously the great run of 2021, there's a lot of people that came into it. There's the class of 2021. I'll put my hand up, class of 2017, where we saw the rise to 20,000 and then the pullback. And there's a lot of people going, oh, what is this? What do you tell them besides telling them to zoom out? Because there's a lot of people that have like kind of lose faith in Bitcoin because of this volatility. What do you say to them besides the zooming out? Because there's people having sleepless nights because they put some money in and now they've seen that money value drop dramatically.
This is a function of investing, unfortunately. There isn't really anything you can say to comfort someone. I mean, what I've said to people in the past is, when I came to crypto in 2015, I thought I was late to the party, right? And I'm sure when 2017, you thought you're late to the party. There's probably people that are joining now that are saying exactly the same thing. Yeah. And probably will be saying that in 2025 and in 2030, right? And this asset class, when you do take a step back, is growing, and it's growing exponentially. And the brain drain, and I always think you've sort of got to look for the leading indicators that sort of, I don't know, obviously as a leading indicator, they point to a growth in a certain category. And if you look at the brain drain happening in the tech space and in the financial sector coming into crypto, that's a pretty good leading indicator in my opinion, right? So you've got a lot of smart people working on solutions to really big problems, whether that be the DeFi space that's heating up, or heated up and continuing to heat up, or whether that just be, the general payment space that you see people working in. I think there's a lot going on in crypto. So I'm still very bullish over the long term. And I think, go look at another asset or asset class. But I mean, let's look at Microsoft as an example. You can do the same thing with Amazon. I mean, these are very successful companies. And if you go look at, let's say, this catastrophic crash that happened in 2000 with both entities, I mean, honestly, if you go look at a price chart right now and you go zoom out over a 15-year view or 20-year view, you wouldn't even be able to point out without having the axes on the bottom or on the sort of x-axis showing the years. You wouldn't even know that crash occurred. That's how small that blip is. And I think that's the same thing that you sort of look at in the crypto space. If you're bullish over the long term, the fundamentals haven't changed. China's become a bit more bearish. I mean, that's kind of expected.
100%. Something that I've learned since coming in now for a couple of years is time in the market makes a hell of a difference. And I think that's the same thing. If you were in Amazon in 2000 versus now, wow, eons apart. But let's move over to the whole China story. You're really keen to get going on explaining what's happening there. Do you want to just give your viewpoint on what's been happening with China and its miners?
Yeah, so I mean, this is not new, by the way. So China's done this quite a few times before. They've just cracked down again on their cryptocurrency mining operations. They're trying to clamp down on the banks that are providing banking services. This includes like the likes of Ant Financial. So they want to prevent them from providing financial services to crypto institutions. Now, if you think about this and you take a step back, you've got quite an authoritarian kind of country that is building their own digital currency. The digital one is probably the most advanced digital currency out there. And now you have Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other cryptocurrencies that completely screw up the centralized system that they're building. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that they're going to, try crowd out the crypto space. And I mean, to me, I don't really see this as massive news. I mean, sure, you are seeing a big relocation of miners because China's had really cheap access to coal-powered electricity, as well as a lot of hydropower in the southern provinces of China. So now with the Chinese clampdown and sort of a lot of miners having to relocate, I personally think you're seeing a lot of these miners having to sell a lot of cryptocurrency that they've held in reserves into the market. That's naturally increasing the supply, and that then drives down the prices, and that sort of exacerbated this entire move, and then that drives this negative sentiment that becomes self-fulfilling, and it just exacerbates this move down. But I personally think you're seeing that at the moment, and then you'll see new mining rigs and mining farms sort of set up in some other energy efficient countries.
Yeah. So does China see Bitcoin as a threat then?
Oh, it clearly does, right? I mean, you don't exactly make a public announcement to the entire country without viewing this digital currency as some sort of a threat. But I also think it's really interesting. I mean, maybe this is going on a slight tangent, but we've got this entire financial system. And actually, let me preface all of this by saying that I am totally for the right kind of regulation. So I'm not trying to just knock regulation for the sake of it, but you've got this entire financial system that is very onerous, and those costs in terms of KYC, AML checks, compliance costs are really high, right? I mean, businesses like ours at Revex, we pay a lot of money to make sure that we are compliant. Now, how much of the money in the system is actually going to terrorist activity or nefarious activities? Probably like nothing, right? I mean, that's almost like saying, listen, no one's going to drive cars, or like people have to do breathalyzer tests every single time they're about to get into a car because there's like 0.0001% of people that are driving drunk.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of thing in like from a financial transaction perspective. It's just like, no, the entire system now has to have these checks for everyone rather than sort of taking like a risk-based approach. So I find it quite interesting. I mean, a lot of people talk about crypto being used for nefarious activities. I mean, honestly, like let's be real, like nefarious activities, people use cash. Like there are very few people are using cryptocurrency for that.
100%, and if they're driving that narrative, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's so strange. It's truly so weird. I mean, and obviously the crypto community sits there and goes, yes, we were responsible for like Silk Road. We enabled that. But you're like, guys, you're missing the point. Like 99.9% of nefarious activity is happening with cash. And like no one's running after cash being like, oh no, take cash out of the system. Like it's just very strange.
So I also want to just kind of talk about, because in the last episode, we spoke about Elon Musk and clean power and all of that. So it's just, do you think it's, what's the word, coincidence that we had Elon Musk talking about clean power, and then China, who is, like you said, coal reliant on their mining. Do you think it's a coincidence that this is all happening in such a short amount of time?
I do think it's a coincidence. I mean, I guess there'll be some conspiracy theorists out there that'll say, no, this is coordinated and whatnot. But I just think this happens to be an unfortunate time. And it's sort of, again, it's after this really big crypto bull run. And again, it's, everyone's talking about crypto, everyone's talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes sense that authorities are finally coming around to having some sort of public announcement. China has to take a position. I mean, if all of a sudden crypto had to, and let's just look at Bitcoin, but if Bitcoin had to then all of a sudden become a $10 trillion asset, like, wow, that's too late. China, you have probably then got loads of businesses, thousands of businesses that are accepting business, probably hundreds of thousands of businesses that are accepting Bitcoin. That's too late. So I think they're trying to step in a bit earlier to prevent this. But at the end of the day, you can't stop it, right? Yeah. I mean, China can obviously try to introduce its own payment system. But at the end of the day, unless they can make a payment system that is better, and the problems with money today isn't the payment system itself. I mean, sure, sending money using credit cards is, it costs 2%, to use most credit card vendors and whatnot, which is ridiculous, right? But I mean, the problems with money today is that you can just print more of it into infinity. Like that's the problem with money. And you're not solving that by having a digital currency. Like, so I really just think, this is just kind of delaying the inevitable when it comes to fiat currencies.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to talk about a strategy that I've personally taken. I don't want to, this isn't financial advice again, disclaimer, but I've started kind of exploring. I heard of stablecoins in the past, but only during the last, let's say 6 months or so, I've actually been utilizing stablecoins. And I see on Revex, you guys have the USDC coin. Do you just want to explain to the people who don't understand what a stablecoin is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So stablecoins are arguably one of the biggest innovations within the crypto space. Why? Because they allow people that want to use stable currencies like dollars or rands, or I mean, there's no rand-based stablecoin just yet. Well, no legitimate one, let's put it that way. Small dig there. There's pound-based stablecoins, there's euro-based stablecoins, but the idea behind a stablecoin really is that it represents a dollar value or a stable currency value. And there's a few different types of stable coins that exist out there, most of which are backed by physical dollars or short-term securities. So let's say USDC, which we offer on the Revix platform, USDT, there's BUSD. These are stable coins. So you've got, generally speaking, an Ethereum token or a standalone token that is then represented by $1 held in a bank account or $1 equivalent in short-term securities that could be liquidated very quickly. So that's the sort of idea or premise behind most stable coins. Then we get some really interesting stable coins. DAI is one of these that isn't backed by physical dollars, but actually backed by Ethereum or backed by another cryptocurrency and is over collateralized, which is super interesting, right? So for every single one DAI that exists, which has $1 value, there has to be at least 150% in reserve of Ethereum or whatever it may be, but in dollar values. And the beauty behind that is all of a sudden you've gone from this reserve banking that we know about today, and you've all of a sudden gone to the exact opposite, which is like the excess reserve banking, which is quite remarkable. And I think DAI is one of the most interesting innovations within the crypto space. And I think this is just the start of a lot of other projects and sort of the backbone of the DeFi space.
Yeah, interesting. So DeFi is a subject all on its own. I'm glad you spoke about DAI because I've seen it, but I haven't explored it yet. But yeah, I love the utility of a stablecoin during the volatility of these prices that we're seeing with Bitcoin. Kind of move your wealth as such over and just kind of weather out the storm, and then you can go back in. That's how I've been utilizing it, and I think it's quite an important understanding. But the DeFi space is definitely something we can dive into. Sadly, our time rushes past. There's so much always to talk about in crypto. But Sean, thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next week because we'll be doing this every week now.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, I appreciate it. And hopefully we can dive into some more about DeFi, NFTs, and all the other interesting things.
Yeah. There's a lot of buzz there. All right, Sean, have a good one. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. You too.